Welcome to This Explainer. Look, let's jump right into this because today we are unpacking something absolutely transformative. We're putting together the ultimate master blueprint for organizational development. Think about the last time your team tried to roll out, say, a massive new software system, or maybe attempted to radically restructure a department. You know how it goes. You kick it off with these big meetings, tons of memos, a whole lot of enthusiasm, and then 6 months later, you look around and literally everyone is right back to doing things the exact same old way. If you've ever felt like your company is constantly trying to change, constantly trying to innovate, but somehow always getting stuck in the mud, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to connect the dots between diagnosing the real root issues, building a culture that supports your people, and actually executing change that sticks.
But right out of the gate, I want to hook you with this striking statistic: 85%. According to a Harvard Business Review study involving over 100 C-suite executives globally, a staggering 85% of them admit that their organizations are fundamentally bad at problem diagnosis. Just let that sink in for a second. Most companies are completely spurred by a bias for action, but at what cost? Managers tend to switch so fast into solution mode that they completely forget to check if they even understand the true root of the problem. Business culture rewards speed, for sure, but running incredibly fast in the wrong direction, that is ultimately fatal.
The legendary Peter Drucker hit the nail on the head here. He noted that a manager who comes up with the right solution to the wrong problem is actually more dangerous than one who comes up with the wrong solution to the right problem. Jumping the gun and solving the wrong issue isn't just a simple waste of time. It actively drains your critical resources, blows through your budgets, completely exhausts your team's morale, and it essentially sends your entire organization running on a treadmill of totally useless work.
So, how do we actually fix this? Well, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're covering 4 key pillars. First, diagnosis before development. Second, the incredibly powerful 9 cells alignment framework. Third, fostering psychological safety. And finally, executing lasting change. Let's get moving.
Section 1. Diagnosis before development. Honestly, identifying the right problem is the absolute foundation of any successful initiative. You have to figure out what's actually broken before you take a hammer to it, right? We need the root cause, not just the symptom.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 9 cells alignment. This is the exact diagnostic tool we need to find those organizational misalignments.
What's really fascinating here is how this matrix breaks down the entire messy complexity of a business into a super simple 3x3 grid. It's kind of like a giant puzzle. On the rows, we've got the 3 levels of performance: the macro organization level, the departmental process level, and the individual employee level. On the columns, we have management, design, and goal. The absolute crucial point here is both vertical and horizontal alignment. Your big corporate goals have to cascade clearly down to departmental processes and right down to an individual employee's daily goals. But at the same time, your structure and management systems have to be designed to support those goals horizontally. Think about it. If your corporate vision is rapid innovation, but your individual performance metrics severely penalize mistakes and only reward playing it safe, well, you've got a systemic breakdown in your 9 cells. You're asking for one thing, but structurally rewarding another. These have to be perfectly aligned.
But here's the kicker. Perfect alignment on paper means absolutely nothing if your people are too afraid to speak up when things inevitably go sideways. That brings us to Section 3, fostering psychological safety. We're moving from the mechanical structure to the human element.
So, what exactly is psychological safety? Coined by Harvard's Amy C. Edmondson, it's all about the quality of relationships within your team. It is an environment where people feel entirely comfortable taking interpersonal risks. Basically, they aren't afraid of each other. They can pitch crazy, out-of-the-box ideas, ask seemingly stupid questions, and most importantly, report massive mistakes without the paralyzing fear of being humiliated or crushed by their boss. Imagine sitting in a meeting, noticing a fatal flaw in a project, but choosing to stay silent because the last person who spoke up got totally chewed out. That silence, that's what kills companies. Psychological safety is the literal bedrock for a culture that supports real innovation.
We've all seen the contrast between these 2 extremes in the workplace, right? On one side, you have the comfort zone. This is where people feel perfectly safe, but there's absolutely no drive. It's highly passive. It's just apathy. People are basically there to collect a paycheck and clock out. Then, on the other extreme, you have the anxiety zone. This is your high-pressure, zero-safety environment. Everyone is operating in pure self-protection mode, constantly covering their tracks, throwing colleagues under the bus, totally paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake. Neither of these zones produces any real growth.
But true innovation requires a totally different environment. You want to be in the learning zone. This is the magic intersection where high accountability meets high psychological safety.
People are challenged, they have these demanding stretch goals, but they know that if they experiment and fail, their team actually has their back. They operate in a blameless culture where mistakes are just viewed as data, not as a reason for punishment. They are completely safe to learn.
And when your employees are operating in that psychologically safe learning zone, you unlock what's called innovative work behavior, or IWB. This is where you don't just get ideas, you get actual execution. It naturally flows in 3 distinct stages. First, idea generation. Someone on the front lines notices a complex problem and dreams up a novel solution. Second, idea promotion. They feel safe enough to gather allies and build hype for the concept across different departments. And third, idea realization. The team actually executes it, tests it, and makes it a tangible reality that benefits the whole company.
Now, obviously, this kind of environment doesn't just magically appear overnight. It requires a very specific type of manager. We need inclusive leaders who possess 6 signature traits. They have to have the cognizance to actively recognize their own blind spots. They need the courage to openly admit when they're wrong, a deep commitment to fostering their team's diverse talents, endless curiosity to explore different viewpoints rather than just relying on their own. They need cultural intelligence to navigate personal differences effectively, and above all, a massive drive for collaboration. Because at the end of the day, a diverse thinking team working safely together is always greater than the sum of its parts.
All right, Section 4, Executing Lasting Change. So we've diagnosed the right problem using our 9 cells, and we've built a psychologically safe culture. Now how do we make the actual transformation stick? Brace yourselves for this one. 70% of all organizational change initiatives fail to meet their objectives. 70%. No way, right? But it's true. You invest incredible amounts of time, money, and emotional energy, and it just falls flat. Why does this happen over and over? The data points clearly to 2 main culprits: deep-seated resistance to change from employees and a total lack of sustained management support. When people are used to doing things one way, that inertia is incredibly difficult to break.
To beat that massive 70% failure rate, we rely on a proven mechanical action plan called Kurt Lewin's change management model. It's decades old, elegantly simple, and incredibly effective. It's just 3 steps: unfreeze, transition, and refreeze. Let's break these down.
Step 1 is unfreeze. Think of it like this. If you have a block of ice shaped like a cone, but you actually need a cube, you can't just forcefully chisel it into shape, it'll shatter. You have to melt it first. This is all about breaking the status quo. You examine your current state and create a powerful, undeniable sense of urgency. You have to help your team realize that the threat of staying exactly the same is actually way worse than the temporary pain of changing. And to melt that ice, you absolutely must have vocal, highly visible leadership support leading the charge.
Step 2 is the transition. This is the messy middle, where uncertainty is just off the charts. People are anxious. To survive this phase, you need a relentless communication plan. You must proactively deal with rumors and resistance. And remember, people aren't usually resisting the change just to be annoying. They're fearing a loss of their own competence, their status, or their security. You have to acknowledge those fears. Empower your early adopters to enthusiastically champion the new way forward and guide their peers through the weeds.
So, the crucial point here in this messy middle is shifting the collective mindset. Leaders have to strive for genuine commitment from their teams, not just forced compliance. You want to move them from, I have to do this new thing because my boss said so, to, I want to do this new thing because I truly see the value in it. Compliance is going to fade the second you stop watching them. Commitment is what actually makes the change endure.
And finally, step 3, refreeze. Once the change has taken hold, you have to lock in that new standard so you don't just slide right back into old habits. This is where the whole blueprint comes together. You have to go back and fundamentally update those 9 cells we talked about. Align your structural rewards, your performance metrics to actively support this new reality. Anchor it deep into the culture. And hey, never forget to enthusiastically celebrate the successes, no matter how small, to constantly reinforce that this is in fact the permanent new normal.
And that brings us full circle. To quickly recap what you should take away from all this today. First, do not jump to solutions before diagnosing the actual root cause of the pain. Second, make sure your goals and systems align perfectly across your 9 cells. Third, remember that without the psychological safety of the learning zone, your team won't take the risks needed to innovate. And finally, real change only endures when you unfreeze the status quo, secure real commitment, and structurally refreeze your new standards. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question to reflect on. As you look at the fires you diligently put out every single day at work, Are you solving the true problem or just the most obvious one? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.